Not a FA, but I was just traveling for business on a Southwest flight. I highly prefer the window seat and made sure I got on board early to grab a good one. Moments later, there is a heavy-set lady, maybe in her late 30s early 40s, who boards and sits next to me in the middle seat. She was dressed with a very nice white and tight-fitting short-skirt dress, maybe for business. The flight was very uncomfortable as it was very apparent that something was wrong. She was sweating profusely and totally nervous the entire time. By the time the flight was done, I got kind of annoyed that she wasn't getting up and exiting the flight as early as she could have. We were close to the front of the plane. However, when the aisle cleared just enough, she booked it. She was off of that plane in as much of a hurry as you could ever imagine. I noticed that when she got up to leave, she pulled her skirt down a little and hurried off. At this point, what I normally do is lift the armrests to allow myself to slide out of the seats, rather than stand up and walk out half-hunched. I'm 6. However, before I slide out, I thankfully glance down at her seat and notice a puddle of blood just waiting for me to glide on over. I didn't remember seeing anything off-color on her bleach-white dress, so she must have done a great job managing her dress until she got up. It was really unbelievable. But I felt so bad for that poor woman and whoever the FA was that would ultimately have to attend to it. I've also been on 3 flights where they've been struck by lightning, an older lady having a heart attack, probably dying, being puked on, and countless other not fun experiences on flights. A long flight from Seattle to Japan. 2 single people in an otherwise empty 4-seat row start to hit it off. 2 hours later, they are sitting right next to each other and absolutely smitten in an otherwise empty 4-seat row. 3 hours later, they are sitting right next to each other with a couple blankets over their laps and hands. Both of them went to the bathroom in the back of the plane. They were seated closer to the front, within 3 minutes of each other. Get back to their seats eventually and fall asleep leaning on each other. Guy wakes up and moves back to his original seat, to have more space to sleep, I assume. Lady gets agitated. Guy goes back to sleep and lady watches movies, constantly looking over at him sleeping. Plane lands. Guy gets an opposite conga deplaning line than lady. I follow them onto the concourse, for science. Lady can't find Guy. Guy is gone. During COVID, I had some passengers come back and say, "Hey, I think there's some people going at it in the exit row." My eyes went wide as I tried to comprehend what I heard. Before I could open my mouth to respond, another person came back and said, "Hey, I think the people in the exit row are going at it." I immediately got up to go break it up when the captain came over and said to prepare for moderate to severe turbulence. Everyone immediately sat down and strapped in, and within 30 seconds, we were hit with some incredibly rough air, which lasted about 5 minutes. After which the captain called and told us that he was going to prepare us for landing immediately because the descent was going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride. So, lights went to bright, flight attendants came through the aisle collecting trash and doing final safety checks, and by the time I made it to the exit row, I was incredibly surprised to see that the only people in that row were Amish/Mennonites. Guess the appeal of the Mile High Club speaks to all of us, regardless of religious background or way of life. Not an FA but a ground crew. We had a flight that was fully loaded and boarded and ready to push, but the captain told us it was going to be a while. About 15 minutes later, another ground crew drives up a set of stairs to the back of the plane and passengers start deboarding from both the jet bridge and the stairs. Meanwhile, several fire trucks and ambulances show up. The FO came down to the ramp to inform us what was going on. Apparently a very obese passenger had gotten stuck in their seat and was asking an FA for help getting out, and in that process, the passenger had explosive diarrhea all over himself, the seat, the FA, his seatmates, and all over the floor. The fire department ended up cutting the passenger out of the seat and the plane went out of service. It was so bad that they brought the stairs to exit the passengers behind him from the rear of the plane, something I have never seen done on a gate before. I used to work for an airline, and there was this wild story that everyone knew about. One of our male flight attendants got fired after it came out that he was caught performing oral sex on another male adult passenger in the galley during a red-eye flight. The whole thing was filmed, which made it even crazier. I'm a flight attendant now, And I can confirm this story is true. It's one of those infamous tales that gets passed around in the industry. Speaking of wild airline stories, there was also this girl who went viral for licking airplane lavatory surfaces. She had some kind of online account. This was before OnlyFans blew up, where she posted gross stuff like that because apparently, some people are into it. I hope she's a millionaire now because, honestly, any other outcome would just be sad. Turns out, I actually went to high school with her, and her life is just one clout-chasing saga after another. Besides the airplane toilet thing, she's the same girl who flashed the portal in NYC and got it shut down. She's been on Dr. Phil, snuck into Antonio Brown's hotel room during an away game and tested positive for COVID afterward, stalked and slept with Lana Rhoades' boyfriend at the time, causing their breakup, and even got a cease and desist letter from the Kardashian family lawyers for spreading a rumor about Kanye cheating on Kim with Jeffree Star. Oh, and she almost died from cheap butt injections in Miami. Her whole life is just one chaotic, clout-driven moment after another, all funded by her rich parents. It's like she's dedicated her life to being the main character of the internet's weirdest drama. Not a FA, but I was a passenger then. 3 a.m. flight, groggy. I was waiting in line to pee facing the lavatory, to the left. The FA tapped me and told me the lavatory behind me was free. So, I turn, look, okay, no lock sign, open it, and there's this naked lady in it. Lady inside suddenly went surprised Pikachu face. This was before surprised Pikachu face was a meme, and just froze. Probably changing, you could see everything. I close it, look at the FA, looks occupied to me. FA went bright red, stammered an apology. I went, it's too early in the morning for this. And while I used the other lavatory, I heard her through the door telling the story to another FA, describing my reaction. Second hand from the pilot, it's pre-9/11. Terrorism hasn't quite taken on the zeitgeist we know today. My friend is a captain on a Northwest flight, and midway through the head FA comes in and informs him there's a bomb on the plane. Well, this of course needs some attention, so he presses her on how she's sure of it. She replies that she overheard a passenger say the word bomb and pilot and went forward to warn the crew. Well, this didn't really make sense to my friend, so he tells his FO to stay there and just be ready, and has the FA take him back to where she heard the threat. Somewhere around business class there was an Indian fellow with a very thick accent, and he was fiddling with his brand new PDA. When my buddy walked over and asked him about it, he was very excited to show off his Palm Pilot. The FA was pretty red in the face after that one, as I understand it. My mom was a station manager, not an attendant, but she had a few funny NSFW stories. We lived on an island, so most of the planes were smaller, overwing prop planes. Larger than Cessnas and big enough to have a cockpit with a shutting door, but not big enough to have a bathroom and small enough to have very specific weights and balances. Every once in a while in the right season planes would have only a handful of passengers. One time there was only a pair of people on the whole flight, a couple. Halfway into the flight the pilots radioed in a strange issue. The plane felt like it was chugging and bouncing. They were worried. They were over the ocean, so couldn't just land, but requested priority to the closest runway. It was serious. A few minutes later, they radioed back and said never mind. When they landed, the two passengers grabbed their shit and left ASAP. The pilots told my mom what happened. The passengers were seated in the front row for balance, but once in the air decided to go all the way to the seats in the tail, and when the co-pilot came out the man was pounding the woman so hard it was making the rear of the little plane reverb and bounce. Flight attendant here. Maybe NSFW? Funny. Night flight cross country. About halfway into the flight the aft flight attendant calls me and says come back here quick. I'm thinking bad things are happening. I get to the back and there is a woman, mid-20s, sitting on the flight attendant jump seat, which is located next to the lavatory. Her pants and undies are around her ankles, and a steady stream of urine is flowing from the seat and under the beverage carts through the galley. I say, miss, what are you doing? She replies, can I have some privacy please? You can't do this, go to the bathroom. She gets up, pulls her pants on, and goes to her seat and falls asleep. We land and security meets the flight. They speak with her. She doesn't remember a thing. The sleeping pills wine combo. I was on a flight to Paris with next to no people for some reason. Couple gets on board and seems very lovey and also very drunk. I'm on a window row alone and they sit a row behind me to the right, the 3 seats in the middle. They get handsier as the flight progresses. I can hear them very well. He keeps supplying her with champagne. She starts to fall asleep on and off. He keeps trying to get her to fool around or go to the bathroom with him. Over the course of an hour or so, I realize they don't know each other and met in the airport. This is based on context clues of their conversation and what they tell FAs. He's still ordering drinks and waking her up to kind of fool around. He eventually goes to the bathroom and she basically passes out. I take the opportunity to let the FA know what's going on, that's it's disruptive on an overnight flight and that I think may be unsafe for her. The FA catches him coming out of the bathroom looking for her because she didn't meet him in there. They make him sit in a different row and mostly leave her alone. He keeps trying to get her attention but she ignores him for the rest of flight after waking up. Maybe not totally NSFW, but I always wonder what the full deal was and if she was okay or would have been if they weren't separated. I was on a flight to Paris with next to no people for some reason. Couple gets on board and seems very lovey and also very drunk. I'm on a window row alone and they sit a row behind me to the right, the 3 seats in the middle. They get handsier as the flight progresses. I can hear them very well. He keeps supplying her with champagne. She starts to fall asleep on and off. He keeps trying to get her to fool around or go to the bathroom with him. Over the course of an hour or so, I realize they don't know each other and met in the airport. This is based on context clues of their conversation and what they tell FAs. He's still ordering drinks and waking her up to kind of fool around. He eventually goes to the bathroom and she basically passes out. I take the opportunity to let the FA know what's going on, that's it's disruptive on an overnight flight and that I think may be unsafe for her. The FA catches him coming out of the bathroom looking for her because she didn't meet him in there. They make him sit in a different row and mostly leave her alone. He keeps trying to get her attention but she ignores him for the rest of flight after waking up. Maybe not totally NSFW, but I always wonder what the full deal was and if she was okay or would have been if they weren't separated. Had a medical emergency my first year flying. Guy was in first class and was in the bathroom for a long time. I knocked and asked if he was okay and he said yeah. I told him to press the call light in there if he needed help. A minute later, he presses the call light and says he needs a doctor. Turns out he's having trouble urinating cause of his cancer treatment and we page for medical help and 3 doctors/nurses come to help. We set up blankets on the ground and make a curtain for some privacy, and I get the urinary catheter from the medical kit. Dude is screaming and groaning in pain cause he needs to pee but can't. We lay the guy down and off goes his pants. I hold his hand and head with my hands while he is huffing and puffing in pain. The urinary catheter goes on while his bits are there for everyone to see. At that exact moment the flight attendant in the back, who for some reason has no idea what's going on, opens the curtain while this dude's dick is out and he's groaning in pain, points at the oven and in a southern accent says, "Mind if I get my sandwich?" We all stare at her in disbelief for a moment and then she goes, "I guess I'll come back in a little bit." It was hilarious looking back, but to finish my story, the catheter didn't work and they said he needed a hospital to do an incision. We didn't divert cause we were already close to the destination and dude was in the bathroom while landing, periodically moaning and gasping in pain. The paramedics come, he goes on the stretcher and he gives me his wife's number and I call her to let her know what's going on. I feel like I should have gotten something, a compliment or anything for assisting, but nope, nothing. Meanwhile, the other FA is worried about her sandwich. Happened to me on a flight to Russia a while back. Met an older lady at the bar, she was probably 50, I was 23 or so. She and I shared so drinks we found out we were both on the same flight. She followed me onto the plane. Sat next to me, spoke to the flight attendant in Russian assuming she was switching seats right here. Already drunk, she ordered us wine and gave me some sleeping pills. I woke up and I had sent a bunch of Snapchats to my buddies, making out with this woman. I don't remember any of it, might have done more than just this. I thought I slept the whole flight, Then she bought me dinner at the airport during my layover. She then went on her way, and I fell asleep at my gate. There was a gate change while I was asleep, woke up to last call boarding my name. Ran through the airport onto the tarmac in February, in flip-flops and shorts, almost missed my flight. Then she found me on Facebook and sent me messages almost every day to come vacation in Italy with her. I had to block her. First and last time I take sleeping pills and alcohol together, learned my lesson. Not my story, but told to me by an old woman in a pub. She worked for Aer Lingus when it first opened as FA. Usually the short-haul trips between Ireland and England, she got offered a raise if she did a couple of transatlantic flights. Coming back from Chicago, there was a man who kept coming on to her, or as she said, some old married fucker kept slapping my ass and calling me honey. I thought to myself, fuck this. She proceeds to tell me how she brought the guy to the bathroom, fainted pulling down his trousers and punched him directly in the balls. She was fired for it, but told the story to me and a group of friends. She passed about 4 years ago, and I keep telling her stories where I can to keep her memory alive.